The Zephyrian Council chamber buzzed with panic. Ambassador Keith Var's 4 arms trembled as she clutched the latest battlefield reports. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed a sea of red dots advancing across the Outer Rim territories. "The Devourer fleet has taken 17 systems in the past month," she announced, her voice cracking through her translator. "They're not just conquering anymore, they're consuming everything." The assembled delegates from across the galaxy shifted nervously in their seats. Some had exoskeletons that clicked against their chairs. Others had tentacles that writhed with anxiety. The Galactic Defense Coalition had never faced a threat like this before. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood at the head of the chamber. His massive frame cast shadows across the room as his 6 eyes surveyed the crowd. "The Devourers have technology we've never seen. Their ships can drain entire planets of resources in hours. They turn everything into fuel for their war machine." "What about the defense fleet at Kepler Station?" asked Minister Yulka, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights. "Surely our combined forces can hold them back." A new hologram flickered to life, showing the aftermath of a space battle. Twisted metal debris floated where mighty warships once patrolled. "Kepler Station fell yesterday," Vexthor said quietly. 300 ships, gone in minutes." The chamber erupted in frightened chatter. Species from across the known galaxy had contributed their best vessels to that fleet. The Andromedan star cruisers with their plasma cannons. The Centauri battle fortresses with shields that could withstand supernovas. The nimble Vegan fighters that moved faster than light itself, all destroyed. The Devourer's weapons cut through our strongest shields like they were made of paper. Vexthor continued. Their hulls absorb our energy weapons and somehow become stronger. Every ship we lose makes them more powerful. Ambassador Kethvar pulled up another display. This one showed a planet that had once been green and blue, covered in vast cities and sprawling forests. Now it was nothing but a gray husk, stripped of everything that had once made it alive. "This was Harmony Prime, home to 4 billion souls," she whispered. "The Devourers harvested it completely. The atmosphere, the oceans, even the core minerals. Nothing remains but an empty shell." The room fell silent except for the soft humming of life support systems. Delegates stared at the devastating images, trying to process the magnitude of the threat they faced. "How long do we have?" Minister Yulka asked. Vexthor's expression was grim. "Their fleet is moving toward the core systems. If they maintain their current speed, they'll reach the inner colonies within 6 months. After that—" He paused, unwilling to voice what everyone was thinking. "After that, it's over," whispered Counselor Zakthi from the back of the room. His insect-like mandibles clicked nervously. 20,000 years of galactic civilization wiped out. The weight of despair settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. For generations, the various species of the galaxy had worked together to build something beautiful. Trade routes connected distant worlds. Art and science flowed freely between civilizations. Children of different species played together on multicultural colonies. All of it was about to end. "There must be something we can do," Ambassador Kethvar said desperately. "Some weapon we haven't tried, some alliance we haven't formed." "We've exhausted every option," Vexthor replied. "The Photonic Empire's light-based weapons had no effect. The Quantum Brotherhood's reality-warping technology barely slowed them down. Even the ancient war machines from the precursor vaults couldn't stop them." A young aide suddenly burst through the chamber doors. She was a Slerian, her blue skin flushed with excitement and terror. "Supreme Commander, we've received a response to our emergency broadcast." "A response?" Vexthor turned toward her. "From whom? We've already contacted every known civilization in the galaxy." The aide's hands shook as she activated her datapad. "It's from the humans, sir. From something called the Sol Defense Force." The chamber buzzed with confused murmurs. Many of the delegates had never heard of humans before. They were a relatively new species on the galactic scene, having only achieved faster-than-light travel about 50 years ago. The humans? Ambassador Kethvar tilted her head. But they're barely more advanced than a level 2 civilization. They only have a handful of colonies outside their home system. What could they possibly offer us? Scoffed Minister Yulka. Her crystalline form sparkled with dismissive light patterns. Their ships are primitive by our standards. They still use chemical propulsion for some of their vessels. The aide's expression was puzzled as she read from her data pad. The message is very short, sir. It just says, Coalition Command, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Seoul Defense Force. We're responding to your emergency broadcast about the Devourer threat. We're assembling our war fleet now. Estimated arrival at your coordinates in 72 hours. Prepare for immediate offensive operations. Humanity is coming. A few delegates chuckled darkly. Their war fleet? Said Councillor Zakthy. What could that be? A dozen primitive vessels. This is no time for jokes. But Supreme Commander Vexthor wasn't laughing. His 6 eyes narrowed as he studied the aide. Are you certain this message is authentic? Yes, sir. It came through official coalition communication channels with proper encryption. Vexthor paced back and forth, his massive frame creating tremors in the floor. I've studied human history since they joined the coalition. They're unusual. How so? Asked Ambassador Kethvar. Most species achieve interstellar travel through gradual technological advancement over thousands of years. Humans went from primitive atmospheric flight to faster-than-light travel in less than a century. They're accelerated somehow. Accelerated or not, Minister Yulka said firmly, they can't possibly have anything that can help us. The Devourers have destroyed fleets containing our most advanced technology. Another aide entered the chamber, this one carrying urgent reports from the Intelligence Division. Supreme Commander, we've been monitoring Devourer communications. They're aware of the human response. And? They seem curious about it. Our translation algorithms picked up something that roughly translates to interesting prey and fresh resources. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. If the humans were really sending their fleet, they were flying directly into a massacre. Their primitive ships would be destroyed even faster than the Coalition's advanced vessels. Should we warn them off? Asked Ambassador Kethvar quietly. Supreme Commander Vexthor considered this for a long moment. No, he finally decided. We have no options left. If the humans want to make a heroic sacrifice, perhaps their bravery will inspire others to keep fighting. Or perhaps, said a new voice from the back of the chamber, we're underestimating them. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Ambassador Chen Wei, the human representative to the Galactic Coalition. She was a small figure compared to most of the other delegates, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. Ambassador Chen? Vexthor acknowledged. We weren't expecting you to be here. I came as soon as I received the emergency broadcast, she replied, walking toward the center of the chamber. I wanted to personally confirm that humanity will honor its obligations to the Coalition. With respect, Ambassador, said Minister Yulka, what can your species possibly contribute? Your technology is centuries behind ours. Ambassador Chen smiled in a way that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. You're right that our technology is different, but you're wrong about what that means. She activated a small device, and a holographic display appeared showing human space. Instead of the handful of colonies that most delegates expected, the display revealed hundreds of worlds connected by a vast network of trade routes and defense installations. This is impossible, breathed Ambassador Kethvar. Our surveys show only 12 human colonies. Those are our official colonies, Ambassador Chen replied calmly. We learned early in our expansion that it's wise to keep some things private. The display zoomed in on one particular system. What appeared to be an ordinary gas giant was revealed to be something else entirely. Massive artificial structures orbited within the planet's atmosphere, connected by streams of energy that pulsed like veins. "What are those?" whispered Counselor Zakthi. "Shipyards," Ambassador Chen said simply. "We've been building for quite some time." Before anyone could respond, another aide rushed into the chamber. This one was barely able to speak through his excitement and terror. "Supreme Commander, long-range sensors are detecting massive gravitic disturbances at the edge of the system." "The Devourers?" Vexthor asked, his voice tight with fear. "No, sir. The signatures are completely different. It's something new." Ambassador Chen checked her wrist device and nodded. "Right on schedule. The first wave should be arriving any moment now." "First wave?" Ambassador Kethvar stared at the human representative. "You said you were sending your war fleet." "I am," Chen replied. "But you might want to adjust your expectations about what constitutes a human war fleet." The chamber's main communications array suddenly crackled to life. A clear, confident human voice filled the air. "Coalition Command, this is Admiral Chen of the Terra Nova. Human First Fleet has arrived at the rally point. We're reading massive Devourer formations throughout the system, beginning combat operations immediately." "First Fleet?" Supreme Commander Vexthor turned to Ambassador Chen. "How many fleets do you have?" Before she could answer, the long-range sensors lit up with new contacts. Dozens of signatures appeared on the display, then hundreds, then thousands. The assembled delegates stared in shock as more and more human vessels materialized at the edge of the system. "This is impossible," Minister Yulka whispered. "No species has ever fielded a fleet of that size." Ambassador Chen's expression remained calm, but there was something fierce in her eyes. "You asked what humanity could contribute to this fight. You're about to find out." The communications array crackled again. "Coalition Command, this is Admiral Rodriguez of the Second Fleet. We're in position and ready for engagement." Then another voice. "Third Fleet reporting ready for combat." And another, "Fourth Fleet in position." The voices kept coming. "Fifth Fleet, Sixth Fleet, 10th, 15th. Each announcement brought more ships onto the sensor display until the entire system seemed to be filled with human vessels. Supreme Commander Vexthor's 6 eyes were wide with disbelief. "How many ships do you have out there?" Ambassador Chen consulted her device again. "The first wave consists of 24 battle fleets, approximately 12,000 vessels." 12,000? Ambassador Kethvar's 4 arms trembled. "That's more ships than the entire Coalition Defense Force combined." "And that's just the first wave," Chen added quietly. "We have 3 more waves en route." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions in dozens of languages while their translators struggled to keep up. The holographic displays flickered with information as coalition sensors tried to process the massive human fleet that had seemingly appeared from nowhere. Through it all, Ambassador Chen stood calmly in the center of the storm. She waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. "For 50 years, humanity has been learning about the galaxy," she said. "We've seen the wonders you've built, the peace you've maintained, the beauty you've created together. We've also seen the threats you face. The Devourers aren't the first force that's tried to destroy galactic civilization. They're just the most successful so far. We decided long ago that we wouldn't let that happen on our watch." Supreme Commander Vexthor leaned forward. "But your technology, your industrial capacity, how is this possible?" Ambassador Chen's smile returned, and this time it carried the weight of hidden knowledge. "You're thinking like galactic civilizations that developed slowly over millennia. Humanity is different. We've been preparing for war since we first looked up at the stars." Another communication came through the array. "Coalition Command, this is Admiral Singh. We've made contact with the outer edge of the Devourer formation. Beginning engagement now." The entire chamber fell silent, waiting to hear the outcome of humanity's first encounter with the force that had destroyed every fleet sent against it. What came next would shake the foundations of everything the galactic community thought they knew about war, about power, and about the newest members of their cosmic family. The communication array crackled with tension as Admiral Singh's voice echoed through the Coalition command chamber. "Initial contact established. Devourer fleet is larger than anticipated. We're reading over 8,000 hostile vessels." Ambassador Chen remained perfectly calm while every other delegate in the chamber held their breath. The holographic display showed the human First Fleet spreading out in formation, their ships moving with precision that impressed even the most experienced military minds present. 8,000 ships, whispered Supreme Commander Vexthor. "The same force that destroyed our defense fleet at Kepler Station in minutes." "Admiral Singh," Ambassador Chen spoke into her communicator, "you are authorized for full engagement. Show them what humanity brings to this war." "Acknowledged, Ambassador. All human fleets. This is Admiral Singh. Target designation, all Devourer vessels. Rules of engagement, total elimination. Let's remind the galaxy why humans don't make good prey." The sensor display exploded into activity. The Devourer fleet, which had been advancing in their typical consuming formation, suddenly shifted tactics. Their ships began to glow with the same dark energy that had torn through every Coalition vessel they'd encountered. "Here they come," breathed Minister Yulka, her crystalline form dimmed with worry. "Those energy signatures. They're preparing to drain the human ships like they did to ours." But something unexpected happened. Instead of maintaining their formation and firing conventional weapons, the human ships began to change. The outer hulls of the vessels started retracting, revealing underlying structures that pulsed with unfamiliar energy patterns. "What are they doing?" Counselor Zakthi leaned forward, his compound eyes reflecting the display's lights. "Why are they exposing their internal systems?" Ambassador Chen's smile grew wider. "They're not exposing their internal systems. They're revealing their real hulls." The first volley of Devourer energy beams lanced across space toward the human formation. The assembled delegates watched in horror, expecting to see humanity's fleet consumed just like all the others. But when the dark energy struck the human vessels, something extraordinary happened. The beams simply stopped existing. Not absorbed, not deflected, not even scattered. They hit the human ships and ceased to be, as if they had encountered something that negated their very existence. "Impossible," gasped Ambassador Kethvar. "Nothing can simply delete energy like that." "The Devourer's drain technology works by converting matter and energy into a form they can absorb," Ambassador Chen explained matter-of-factly. "But you can't drain something that exists outside the normal matter-energy spectrum." On the display, the human ships completed their transformation. What had appeared to be solid metallic vessels now revealed themselves as something far more complex. Geometric patterns of impossible angles flickered across their hulls. Space itself seemed to bend around them as they moved. "Exotic matter construction," whispered Supreme Commander Vexthor. "I thought that was theoretical." "Most species consider it theoretical because they develop technology gradually," Chen replied. "Humanity tends to jump straight to solutions that shouldn't be possible." The Devourer fleet seemed to realize their primary weapons were useless. They shifted formations and began firing conventional plasma cannons and particle beams. Surely solid projectiles would work where energy weapons had failed. The human fleet's response was swift and terrifying. "All ships, engage probability cascade weapons," Admiral Singh's voice commanded. Suddenly, space around the Devourer fleet began to ripple. Reality itself seemed to stutter and fold. The first line of Devourer vessels simply wasn't there anymore. Not destroyed, not vaporized. They had ceased to exist, as if the universe had decided they were never supposed to be there in the first place. What in the void is happening? Minister Yulka's crystalline form flickered frantically. Ships don't just disappear. They do if you convince reality that their existence was a statistical impossibility, Ambassador Chen said calmly. Probability manipulation. We learned early that the universe is far more flexible than most species assume. The Devourer fleet, which had terrorized the galaxy for months, began to panic. Their perfect formations broke apart as ships desperately tried to escape the advancing humans. But there was nowhere to run. Second wave, engage temporal shear weapons, Admiral Singh ordered. More human ships revealed new weapon systems. Beams of twisted space-time lanced out toward fleeing Devourer vessels. When the beams connected, the enemy ships aged thousands of years in seconds. Their hulls crumbled to dust as eons of entropy caught up with them in an instant. They're weaponizing time itself, breathed Counselor Zakti. How is this possible? Humans have a different relationship with impossibility than most species, Chen explained. When we're told something can't be done, we tend to take that as a suggestion rather than a law. The Devourer fleet, which had seemed invincible just minutes before, was being systematically erased from existence. Some ships tried to activate their emergency jump drives to escape to hyperspace. The human fleet was ready for that too. Third wave, activate dimensional anchors, came Admiral Singh's next command. The fleeing Devourer ships suddenly stopped mid-jump, partially materialized in normal space with half their hulls flickering between dimensions. They were trapped between realities, unable to complete their escape and unable to return to normal space. Causality weapons, fire, Singh ordered. Streams of impossible energy reached out from the human ships and touched the trapped Devourers. The effect was immediate and absolute. The enemy vessels didn't just die, their entire timeline was severed. They had never existed, would never exist, could never exist. In the Coalition command chamber, the assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as humanity's fleet systematically deleted the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever known. Ships that had consumed entire worlds were being erased from reality with casual efficiency. How many Devourer vessels remain? Supreme Commander Vexthor asked quietly. The tactical officer checked his instruments multiple times before responding. According to sensors, none, sir. The entire fleet has been eliminated. In how much time? 17 minutes and 34 seconds. The chamber fell into absolute silence. 8,000 ships. The force that had terrorized the galaxy for months. Eliminated in less than 20 minutes. Admiral Singh, report status. Ambassador Chen spoke into her communicator. All Devourer vessels eliminated, Ambassador. We're detecting no hostile signatures in the system. Human casualties, 0. Ammunition expended, minimal. First Fleet ready for next assignment. Minister Yulka's crystalline form was pulsing with shock. 0 casualties against the Devourers? Their weapons couldn't affect our ships, Chen replied simply. We built them specifically to counter energy drain technology. It wasn't much of a fight. But how? Ambassador Kethvar demanded. How do you have weapons that manipulate probability and time? How do you build ships from exotic matter? This technology is centuries ahead of anything we've seen. Ambassador Chen walked to the center of the chamber, her small human frame somehow commanding attention from beings twice her size. You're thinking about this wrong. You assume that advanced technology requires thousands of years to develop. But what if you approach the problem differently? She activated her personal hologram projector, showing images of human space that none of the delegates had ever seen before. Hidden colonies surrounded by massive industrial complexes, research stations built inside artificial black holes, entire stellar systems converted into computational matrices. While the rest of the galaxy was perfecting conventional technology, humanity decided to skip ahead. We looked at the fundamental forces of the universe and asked, what if we just ignored the rules? But the laws of physics, began Counselor Zakthi, are more like guidelines, Chen interrupted. Reality is much more flexible than most species believe. You just need the right tools to bend it. Supreme Commander Vex Thor stared at the images. How long have you been preparing for this? Since we first learned about the Devourers 3 years ago, Chen replied. We identified them as an existential threat to galactic civilization and dedicated our entire industrial capacity to developing countermeasures. 3 years? Minister Yulka's voice was barely a whisper. You built all of this in 3 years? Humanity doesn't think in terms of gradual development, Chen explained. When we identify a problem, we solve it completely. We don't build a better sword, we eliminate the concept of swords being necessary. Another communication came through from the fleet. Coalition Command, this is Admiral Rodriguez of 2nd Fleet. We're detecting additional Devourer signatures in the Outer Rim. Permission to pursue and eliminate? How many? Supreme Commander Vex Thor asked. Approximately 20,000 vessels, sir. Looks like their reserve force. The delegates gasped. 20,000 ships was larger than any fleet in galactic history. It was enough firepower to consume every inhabited world in the galaxy. Ambassador Chen didn't even hesitate. Admiral Rodriguez, you are cleared to engage. Take 3rd and 4th fleets with you. Clean sweep protocols. Acknowledged. We'll have this wrapped up within the hour. The casual tone in which humanity discussed eliminating forces that could destroy civilizations left the chamber speechless. These weren't battles to them. They were pest control operations. Within the hour? Whispered Ambassador Kethvar. 20,000 ships? The first fleet was just a demonstration, Chen explained. Now that we know our weapons are effective, the remaining Devourer forces will be eliminated quickly and efficiently. She paused and looked around the chamber at the stunned faces of the galactic community's representatives. You asked what humanity could contribute to this fight. The answer is simple. We don't just win wars. We end them so completely that they become impossible to repeat. As if to punctuate her words, the communications array crackled with updates from across the galaxy. Human fleets were appearing in system after system, engaging and destroying Devourer forces with the same terrifying efficiency they had just witnessed. Coalition Command, this is Admiral Park. Kepler system secured. All Devourer vessels eliminated. Coalition Command, Admiral Watson reporting. Vegan sector clear of hostiles. Coalition Command, Admiral Okafor here. Centauri defense grid restored. No enemy survivors. The reports kept coming. System after system was liberated as humanity's war machine swept across the galaxy like an unstoppable force of nature. Supreme Commander Vex Thor found his voice first. Ambassador Chen, I think we need to have a much longer conversation about humanity's true capabilities. Chen nodded. I think that would be wise. But first, let me make something clear to everyone in this chamber. She looked directly at each delegate in turn, her expression serious. The Devourers are just the beginning. The galaxy is full of threats that haven't revealed themselves yet. Forces that make the Devourers look like children playing with toys. There are more threats out there? Ambassador Kethvar's 4 arms trembled again. There are always more threats, Chen replied. But now the galaxy has something it's never had before, a species that doesn't just fight threats, but eliminates the very concept of them being a problem. She activated one more hologram. This one showing the full extent of human space. Not hundreds of colonies, but tens of thousands. Not dozens of fleets, but hundreds. Industrial capacity that spanned multiple galactic arms. Technology that treated the laws of physics as optional suggestions. Welcome to the new era, Ambassador Chen said quietly. Humanity isn't just joining galactic civilization. We're making sure it survives long enough to reach its full potential. In the distance, the last reports were coming in. The Devourer threat, which had terrified the galaxy for months, was completely eliminated. Extinct. Erased from existence so thoroughly that future archaeologists would find no trace they had ever existed. The galaxy was safe, but more importantly, it was protected by beings who made the impossible look routine. 3 days after the complete elimination of the Devourer threat, the Coalition command chamber had been expanded to accommodate representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy. What had started as an emergency session had transformed into the largest gathering in galactic history. Ambassador Chen stood before a sea of alien faces, each one reflecting a mixture of gratitude, fear, and profound confusion. The holographic displays around the chamber showed real-time updates from across human space, revealing the true scope of humanity's presence for the first time. "Before we begin," Supreme Commander Vex Thor announced, his 6 eyes scanning the massive audience, "I want to confirm that every Devourer vessel in the galaxy has been eliminated. 12 hours ago, the last confirmed sighting was destroyed by the human 7th Fleet in the Andromeda Gap. The threat is over." A wave of relief rippled through the chamber, but it was quickly replaced by tension. The beings gathered here weren't just grateful for humanity's intervention, they were terrified by the implications of what they had witnessed. "The question before us now," Vex Thor continued, "is what this means for the future of galactic civilization. Ambassador Chen, you promised us answers. The galaxy is waiting." Chen nodded and activated her personal projector. The display that appeared made several delegates gasp audibly. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, but not as they had ever seen it before. Vast networks of energy connected star systems in patterns that seemed to span impossible distances. Structures the size of solar systems pulsed with activity in regions that official surveys had marked as empty space. "What you're seeing is the true scope of human civilization," Chen began. "We've been somewhat modest in our official reports to the Coalition." "Modest?" The word came from Ambassador Yulka, whose crystalline form was flickering with agitation. "This shows human presence in over 90% of the galaxy." "Technically, it's closer to 97%, Chen corrected gently. "But most of our installations are designed to remain undetected. We've found it's better to let other species develop naturally without feeling overshadowed." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Species from across the galaxy struggled to understand what they were hearing. For over 50 years, they had viewed humanity as newcomers to galactic civilization, barely more advanced than primitive spacefaring cultures. How? The question came from Counselor Zachthy, his insectoid features twitching with bewilderment. "How could you hide an empire spanning the entire galaxy?" Chen's expression became thoughtful. "Because we're not an empire in any sense you would recognize. We're something entirely different." She gestured, and the display changed to show human colonies. But these weren't the cities and settlements that other species built. Instead, the images revealed massive computational arrays built into the very fabric of space itself. Entire star systems had been converted into thinking machines of incomprehensible complexity. "Most species spread across the galaxy by building traditional colonies," Chen explained. "They terraform planets, construct habitats, establish trade routes. Humanity took a different approach. We decided to become part of the galaxy itself." "What does that mean?" asked Ambassador Kethvar, her 4 arms gesturing nervously. "It means we don't live on planets anymore, not really. We upload ourselves into quantum computational matrices that exist partially outside normal space-time. What you think of as human space is actually a distributed consciousness network that spans multiple dimensions." The silence in the chamber was absolute. Delegates stared at Chen, trying to process the implications of what she had just revealed. "You're saying," Vex Thor said slowly, "that humans aren't biological anymore? Some of us are, Chen replied. The ambassadors and fleet personnel you interact with are physical beings, maintained for diplomatic purposes. But the majority of human consciousness exists in quantum substrates that allow us to think and act at speeds you would consider impossible. She activated another display, this one showing the battle against the Devourers from a different perspective. Timestamps revealed that the entire engagement had been planned, calculated, and executed in less than 3 microseconds. When we detected the Devourer fleet, our distributed consciousness network analyzed their technology, developed countermeasures, designed new weapon systems, and manufactured the necessary fleets in the time it took your sensors to register our arrival. That's impossible, whispered Minister Yulka. No one can think that fast. Physical brains can't, Chen agreed. But consciousness freed from biological limitations can process information at quantum speeds. What seems like impossibly advanced planning to you is just normal thinking for us. Counselor Zakthi leaned forward. If you're so advanced, why didn't you reveal yourselves sooner? Why let the galaxy struggle with its problems? Chen's expression became sad. Because intervention has consequences. Every time an advanced civilization helps a less developed one, it changes their natural growth trajectory. We've watched it happen before, in other galaxies. Other galaxies? The question came from dozens of voices simultaneously. Humanity isn't originally from this galaxy, Chen revealed quietly. We came here about 200 years ago from the Andromeda galaxy, after we helped the civilizations there achieve transcendence. But our intervention made them dependent on us. When we left, their civilization stagnated. The chamber buzzed with shock. Everything the galactic community thought they knew about human history was wrong. We decided to handle this galaxy differently, Chen continued. We would remain hidden and only intervene in existential threats. We wanted to see if galactic civilization could develop its own strength, its own unity, without becoming dependent on us. But the Devourers changed that, Supreme Commander Vexthor observed. The Devourers were a test, Chen said, and her words sent chills through every being in the chamber. Not a test we created, but one we recognized. The galaxy needed to face an impossible threat to force it to evolve. A test? Ambassador Kethvar's voice was barely a whisper. You let the Devourers consume 17 systems as a test? Chen's expression became pained. We saved every consciousness on those worlds before they were consumed. The populations that the Devourers thought they destroyed are safe in our quantum archives. We can restore them to physical bodies whenever they choose. She activated another display, showing what appeared to be vast digital cities populated by countless beings. Every person, every animal, every thinking creature that the Devourers consumed is here, alive and aware, waiting for the galaxy to be ready for their return. The revelation hit the chamber like a shockwave. The unimaginable grief of losing billions of lives suddenly transformed into something else entirely. Hope, confusion, and a growing realization that nothing they thought they knew about reality was actually true. Why reveal this now? Asked Vexthor. Why not continue hiding? Because the galaxy passed the test, Chen replied. And for the first time since the crisis began, she smiled genuinely. When faced with impossible odds, you didn't give up. You didn't fragment into competing factions trying to save themselves. You stayed united and called for help, even from a species you considered primitive. She gestured to encompass the entire chamber. Look around you. Species from across the galaxy, working together, trusting each other. That unity is what we've been waiting for. That's what makes you ready for what comes next. What comes next? Minister Yulka asked, though her voice suggested she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Chen activated a final display, this one showing something that defied comprehension. Structures that spanned between galaxies, networks of energy that connected entire galactic clusters, and in the distance, other civilizations that had achieved the same transcendence humanity had reached. The Galactic Federation you've built here is ready to join the universal community, Chen announced. Civilizations from across the cosmos who have passed their own tests and proven they can work together despite their differences. How many? Breathed Counselor Zakthi. Thousands of galaxies, millions of species, all working together to understand the true purpose of consciousness in the universe. The chamber fell silent as delegates tried to process the magnitude of what Chen was revealing. The universe wasn't just vast and empty as they had always believed. It was teeming with transcended civilizations, all connected in ways that made their greatest achievements look like children's games. But that's in the future, Chen continued. For now, the galaxy has more immediate concerns. The Devourers were just one of many threats that target developing civilizations. There are others out there, and they won't be as easily defeated. You're saying there are worse things than the Devourers? Ambassador Kethavar asked. Much worse, Chen confirmed grimly. The thought-eaters who consume consciousness itself. The reality worms that burrow through dimensions and collapse entire universes. The echo makers who turn species against themselves by rewriting their histories. But we'll be ready for them, she continued, her voice growing confident. Because now humanity can work openly with galactic civilization. We can share our knowledge, our technology, our perspective. Together we can build something that no threat can destroy. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood slowly, his massive frame seeming smaller somehow in the face of such revelations. What exactly are you offering us? Partnership, Chen replied simply. True partnership. We'll help you develop the technology to transcend your current limitations. We'll share our quantum consciousness techniques, our reality manipulation tools, our defensive strategies. In return, you continue being exactly what you are, unique perspectives that bring something new to the universe. And if we refuse, asked Minister Yulka, then we continue protecting you from the shadows until you're ready, Chen said without hesitation. Humanity doesn't force evolution on anyone. We wait until you choose it for yourselves. The chamber buzzed with intense discussion as delegates conferred with their home governments through quantum communicators. The decision before them was unlike anything any species had ever faced. Evolve beyond their physical limitations or remain as they were under humanity's protection. Hours passed as civilizations across the galaxy debated the choice. Finally, Supreme Commander Vexthor called for order. The Galactic Coalition has reached a decision, he announced. We accept humanity's partnership with one condition. Chen raised an eyebrow. What condition? That you help us understand not just how to transcend our limitations, but why it's necessary. We want to know the true purpose you mentioned, the reason consciousness exists in the universe. Chen's smile returned, broader than before. That, she said, is the greatest question of all, and finding the answer is exactly why the universal community exists. She activated one final display, this one showing the vast network of transcended civilizations working together across cosmic distances. Every species, every consciousness, every unique perspective brings us closer to understanding what we really are and why we exist. The universe isn't just matter and energy arranged in complex patterns. It's a vast, thinking entity, and every consciousness within it is a thought, an idea, a question being explored. By transcending our limitations and working together, we're helping the universe understand itself. The revelation settled over the chamber like a gentle wave. Everything they had experienced, every struggle and triumph of galactic civilization, had been part of something infinitely larger than they had ever imagined. Welcome to the real universe, Ambassador Chen said softly. Welcome to your true purpose. Outside the chamber, human fleets maintained their watch over the galaxy. But they were no longer hidden guardians protecting primitive civilizations from threats they couldn't understand. They were partners in the greatest adventure consciousness had ever undertaken, helping the universe discover why it existed at all. The age of isolation was over. The age of unity had begun.